Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Built in Ohio. We have another fantastic guest today, and Becca. As we were just chatting a few seconds before we started, one of my favorite stories when I get to hear about entrepreneurs and startups and new ventures is when people have a deep operating expertise, and so they come from the space that they're building in. Sometimes they're in healthcare and they see an inefficiency. Sometimes they're in the public sector and they see something that can improve the lives of taxpayers and residents. In your case, you come from the bridal industry, and as a bridal industry, person, you saw something. But tell us a little bit about your background, and then I want to get into dress it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me here, Chris. This is an awesome opportunity to shed some light on what the problem I'm trying to solve inside of the bridal industry. It's very near and dear to my heart. I bought into a bridal shop in 2010, and that was actually the same year that Pinterest and Instagram launched.
Hmm.
So little did I know what I was in for at that time. The industry was about to be rocked by a massive digital change, the way that brides were used to shopping evolved and e-commerce was coming in, and I was there to kind of lead the charge for 10 years. I was able to exit in 2020, but along the way, I was able to learn every single broken piece of the industry up close. It's an industry rooted on tradition, emotions, and it just hasn't found a way to adapt to technology at this point. So I at one time I had seamstresses that were on staff, had a manager, like a pretty large staff in a really great boutique in St. Henry, Ohio. And I was able to sell it to my manager and successfully exit in 2020. So at the end of 2020, I stepped away, and then she's been carrying the torch ever since. But having been in that role and walked away, and it's kind of funny because I've had conversations with people and they said, Becca, you've probably had PTSD. And I said, yeah, actually, I did. I never wanted to come back to the wedding industry. And I worked at a tech startup for 2 years because I love technology. And that's a lot of what I did to make my business thrive during that decade was I integrated technology. I learned, I understood the behaviors and the changes that were going on. And I really leaned into that. But when I left, I couldn't unsee the patterns. People were still coming back to me. They were still asking me questions. And I realized that my identity was like really tied to the wedding industry. And people were still asking me, and I just saw things just getting even more difficult. And that's when I had the idea, after I left the tech startup and had that hands-on experience on a small team, which was incredible. And I also coached robotics. So I like to bring that into my story as well. Those kids inspire me to do this. And I remember telling them that I was doing it. So yeah, so I launched Dress It the beginning of 2024, started thinking about the idea a few months before that, and then really dove into it like January of 2024.
Okay. Well, and before kind of getting into the dress it story, you mentioned coming from the industry, every nook and cranny and high and low and good part and bad part.
Mhm.
That strikes me as a one of my favorite kind of entrepreneurial quotes or anecdotes, I guess, was actually from Kristen Cavallari, who
Mhm.
Uncommon James, which kind of a small business but e-commerce, and it was I don't know, a Wall Street Journal or some type of kind of business person profile, and someone asked, hey, what's the most thing you're most proud of and having built this company? And it was, and I'm probably butchering this at this point because it's been a while, but essentially the answer was, I have done everything that anyone on this big, growing, large at the time team it does. And so, knows
Mm,
every single aspect of the business. And I think that's something that not a lot of operators, certainly
yeah.
CEOs especially, have done every single level. But to your point, there's a ton of people building startups and tech companies, but to see people that come from a deep operating expertise,
Mhm.
that seems more rare than it probably should be. And because it takes a big leap to sell that business, pivot into something else, and then decide to go all in on this startup.
Right. And, to that point too, I was able to speak at New York Fashion Week, The Edge. I was invited there and I felt so old.
Hmm.
And this comes into the experience. But when I was talking about Dress It, a lot of people came up to me after, and there were comments like, Becca, you commanded the room, because we could feel your passion and the understanding that you had for this particular industry. And I've lived it. I've cried with people. I've cried with my employees. I've learned of women who were pregnant before their moms and their sisters even knew. Like, there are so many things inside of this industry, the family dynamics. You're dealing with women's bodies and sizing and weight loss and stress. And so that is something that is so extremely complex that gives me, I know it gives me an edge here. And I say I'm kind of like a bridal tech unicorn because I love tech, but I also understand, the nuances and the complexities of this industry. That is going to help us to, definitely build in the AI space of our chat agent that we are excitedly building right now.
Yeah, that's the stuff that you can't. I don't know how you replicate that from an operating perspective, or a leadership from a, you're building your startup of, just those years of knowing those little things that you don't know until you know,
Yeah.
that are just so incredibly valuable. So 2014 or 2024 for Dress It, correct?
Yep.
And so,
Yep.
what was kind of that time like as you were, what was the big kind of like challenge, frustration, issue that you saw that you thought you needed to correct?
It was brides being overwhelmed and boutique owners being overworked. And then also the designers just not being able to support their retailers as much as they could. So there's this split and there's this complete disconnect from every stakeholder, I guess, within this industry. And they weren't embracing technology the way they should. And after I left in 2020, I thought, you know what, maybe someone will figure this out. But there's been patches that have been put on these issues, but nobody was really ever been able to figure out the foundational issue.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it's emotion, it's guidance, it's giving these brides the confidence they need to say yes inside of a boutique. So that's what I saw a lot of brides going and trying on dresses and playing dress up and using the bridal shop as a place to kind of test and then go look online. And I always say it's not their fault, because the industry sets them up to fail at this point. They're trained to start their journey online and they want to finish in store. The data point, 74% of Gen Z would rather purchase in store, but they don't know where to find dresses. They don't know how that whole experience works. They don't understand timelines and the craftsmanship of a dress. It's not like buying something on Amazon or, bracketing and buying several sizes and then trying them on and sending them back. There's a lot of, craftsmanship and artisan and work that goes into making these dresses that they just don't understand. So there's a whole lot of that misinformation that brides are seeing on TikTok and Reddit. Those are the sources they're turning to, where it could be the boutiques and it could be the designers. Those are the ones that understand, the impact and the importance of this, this purchase that every girl dreams about, from the time that she's a little girl.
And from a operation and tactical perspective, where you've been in the industry, you had a leg up in terms of you started working in tech after you exited your previous company. But what did you do kind of like what were those, the first 5 moves or so, when you said, hey, I have this idea, I'm going to go after it, but I'm going to build a company in your old operating space? Like what was that like, and how did you go about that day one? And asking, because I think there's probably a lot of people that are in, whether they're in banks or healthcare systems or in education or small businesses, where they have ideas, but they wouldn't necessarily, they could be incredible employees and team leaders within their organizations, but to make that leap and to go after it like you have, again, it's incredibly rare and amazing. So what, as someone maybe listening that would like to do that someday, what did you do? How did you do it?
So I started, I actually ran into someone who had previously exited a company that they had built. And I said, you know what? I have this idea. And he said, Becca, just write it down, create a business plan, go after it. And I thought, okay. So I started to do that. And my first step was, I need a co-founder. I started doing all of this. How do I start a company? How do I start a tech company? I went to Bridal Market in March of 2024, which is a place that I had gone previously to buy dresses. So, as a bridal shop owner, you go twice a year to Chicago, and then you would buy your dresses from the designers that you would show in your store.
Hmm.
So, I decided to have a booth there and just do some market research. And I didn't want to do it by myself. I was really nervous. I thought, I can't go and be on the other side of things and talk to these bridal shop owners. So I was getting my hair done in my salon, and I've had a great relationship with the salon owner, Megan. And I started to talk to her about my idea, and she said, "Oh my gosh, I know somebody that can help you, and that's Frank." So Frank's my right hand man. We call him our tech quarterback. He's been with me from the beginning. He is absolutely incredible, so smart, can figure anything out. And he's like, "Yeah, I'll go." Didn't know anything about bridal, but his mom was in pageants. She
Hmm.
ran pageants, and he was in this, entertainment circuit. Just a brilliant, really cool, down to earth guy, like somebody you want to have on your team. And he and Megan accompanied me to that March market. That's when we started to ask questions. We built a booth. We had conversations with over 150 bridal boutique owners. So that was the best place for us to really get in front of and talk face to face with our customer.
Hmm.
So our customer at that time we thought was the bridal shop owner, because I was a bridal shop owner, and we got a lot of feedback. We got a lot. It validated a lot of the ideas that we had, and then we moved forward from there. And I connected with Big Kitty Labs in Columbus, and Tushar and I have become really great friends. And he's been amazing with connecting me inside of the Ohio tech space. And I'm going to rewind a little bit. Even before I went to market, I started to engage a little bit more on LinkedIn, and I wanted to get into the tech scene somewhere in Ohio. And I have two boys that live in Columbus right now. And I remember thinking, I might go to one of these tech happy hour tech startups, and I'm just going to check it out. And oh my gosh, Ohio X is doing all of these cool things. And so it's kind of a really neat thing for me to have spoken, when just a year prior, I was this girl on the side thinking, I have this idea, but I don't know where to get started. And it would be really cool to be involved. So,
That's
and the fact that
awesome.
I'm on here today, like really, Chris, I mean that truly from my heart. It's been a whirlwind, but that's how. And I don't think I could be here without the support from Columbus. And I know that really wasn't the question that you asked, but
No, yeah.
it naturally turns back to that, because I needed support. And
Hmm.
I found the support I needed through community in Columbus.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you mentioned, going to that, because I remember meeting you at some, and you've been at Morning Techs and the Brew
Yep.
Dog happy
Hmm.
hours. But when you say 2024, and even earlier I slipped and said 2014, just because I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's 2024, and
No.
like just time flies. But I knew that, and as we were prepping for this and seeing bios and that kind of stuff, but like when you say that and you share that, and it's amazing to see how far you've come with how new you were.
Yeah.
Because I've been new. I mean, everyone inevitably is new to this space in some way, shape, or form, whether
Hmm.
you're at Ohio State and a software engineer just trying to figure out, or you've been in your career. And I, like you, I was in a career doing other stuff, and then kind of gravitated and got in this. I would not have kind of guessed, if I just had off the top of my head thought, when did Becca start this? Like, I would probably said 3 or 4 years ago, with just how much momentum you have
That's
built. And
awesome.
and that's a credit to you, of like, it's like, oh wow, that was like 375 days ago or something like
I
that. It,
know.
it, it
I
it
know.
wasn't that long ago. So
I
so
know.
kudos. Yeah. And that's,
Thank you.
that's showing up. And to your point of like connecting these pieces, where you find Frank, the technology quarterback, and then you're meeting Tushar, and then coming to the stuff. So that's really incredible.
Yeah.
AI, that's something that everyone's, navigating in
Mhm.
every sector, every industry. It's democratized and decentralized technology, unlike anything other than maybe the internet, where we could all go online, decades ago. How are you thinking about, integrating AI into your product, into the wedding and bridal industry more, at large? And I guess, as a question, how much of an opportunity do you think there is now because of AI, that maybe pre kind of generative AI's boom with ChatGPT,
Mhm.
would it have made what you're doing a lot harder, easier? Like, what does that AI landscape look like for you?
Yeah, and in that short time, there's been a lot of change with
Yeah.
the way that we are integrating AI. So When I did secure my domain in September or October of 2023, I chose dressit.ai. I love to read and I love to research, and I see trends and I can understand and see patterns. So I went in that route. But when I started to talk to my customers and people, and that's the designers and the boutiques, they're afraid. And this was 6 or 8 months ago when I had the opportunity to speak at AI Week, Cincinnati, the women's breakfast. No, it was Columbus AI Week. I talked to them about that. I said, our customers are not ready to hear this word AI. And that was in September. So thinking about how quickly that moves, and we are now in June, and we are an AI first company. We have made that transition even in the last month to really, focus our efforts on AI. And we have a really unique angle on how we're doing that, because we are going to help brides with confidence. We're going to be able to capture sentiment. And we're also going to be able just to get these brands, the designers have stories, but brides can't see that yet. So we're creating kind of like a Pinterest style embedded experience inside of the designer websites. So right now, I say the connection gets lost at the store locator. So every designer, a bridal designer, will have a store locator, and it says, find our dresses here. But what it is, it points to, a store. It doesn't tell anything about their brand, about the store, about the connectivity. So what we're doing is we are embedding, like I said, that Pinterest style experience inside of the designer's websites with Bria, who is our agent. And she's going to be able to guide the bride to help her to understand what timelines are, why it takes 6 to 8 months for a dress to come in, where she can find specific dresses, why, one dress is structured one way. Bridal sizing, that's another thing that women really struggle with, because the sizing is built on size charts that are so outdated. Giving them the ability to source dresses inside of their the designers have hanging stock right now, like with the tariffs have thrown everything in a tizzy too. So that's something else that I've been dealing with is, a lot of our customers they're preoccupied and they're stressed out about tariffs. Like, what is the future of manufacturing? So so that AI is going to help the bridal designers who support the boutiques to be able to educate and guide those brides to the stores that they want to shop at, making them feel like this is the place I need to go. These are the dresses they have. I feel good. But inside of that experience, we also have collaboration. So a mom and a sister or a partner, whoever wants to be involved in this journey, can jump into that collaborative space, and they can speak to each other. And all of that data we can get to be able to help the designers make better decisions on design, see where trends are across the country. If they have a store that's in California, but they have dresses somewhere else that are performing well, but that store didn't buy that dress at market, they can ship those dresses over there to make sure those brides are, being able to sell the dresses that are in demand. So there's a lot of, I say this proprietary data, but it's rooted in sentiment. And we truly feel that the human specialist, who is the bridal consultant inside of the store, is what makes the whole experience more successful and more confident.
Yeah. And that's fascinating, where you see that in a lot of different kind of AI conversations, where it's like human in the loop, or, co-pilot, both the Microsoft and then just in general, but utilizing the technology to enable someone to do their job, more effective. What has that journey been like for, most bridal shops? I'm guessing are small businesses where, they don't have probably technology teams. Maybe they have kind of a part-time IT person or someone like that, or if they're part of a larger, corporate, maybe that's it. But I guess maybe that's a question of, most of these bridal shops, are they small businesses? Are they part of kind of more national, regional chains? And then what has that been like, trying to get, AI, something that everyone's reading about? Some people it's scary, some people it's amazing. Trying to get it into maybe a business that historically, hasn't been a place where, leading technologies are going.
Yeah, these bridal boutiques, especially the ones that are independently owned, they are so overwhelmed. They have to manage, their social media to keep up with the algorithms. They have to pay a lot of money for Google ads. And really, there is no direct path to purchase, right? So when they see they might be advertising on Pinterest or putting things on Instagram, and there's still just a lot of confusion. So they do have to do a lot with a little. And we're seeing more because, like I said, 6 months ago, when I started to post some things on my Instagram about AI, the bridal shops were really nervous. They thought that I was, creating a platform that was going to take over. And now what the signals we're seeing heavily, because I've had several conversations with many of the top bridal designers, is the designers are ready. They want AI. They just don't know how to use it. They're like, we need AI. We don't know how to use it. I said, I'm your girl. Okay. So let's talk. So we've been having conversations with these larger designers, and we've decided that we need to empower the designers with AI and give them the technology, because the boutiques, it's too much for them to take on. They can't take on another piece of technology. So if we can find a way to solve this disconnect and strengthen that relationship between the designer and the boutique with AI and our technology, then everybody wins. So yeah, they're ready for it. And we're definitely the leaders in the bridal space right now.
Yeah. And I love that, because I think that's such I don't know if overlook's the right word, but the AI impact and opportunity for the small business community, because, startups, everyone's in the startup space is trying to figure it out and dealing with, realities of the big companies coming out of San Francisco. The big enterprises have huge technology teams all trying to navigate this, but most people, most Ohioans, most Americans, they're working at small businesses that don't have these huge technology teams. So I just find it fascinating and love what you're doing. And others that are trying to get this technology and others like it, into that small business community, which I'm sure is a challenge, but it's a hugely important need, and also just opportunity.
It is. And I feel like I've been a voice of AI for probably the past year. It's incredible to see how many people come up to me. There have been teachers that have been asking me for advice because they see that I'm attending these different events and really trying to learn. And just the incredible people that I have talked to, and my own kids. I said, you know what, you can help make your businesses, your boss's, life a lot easier if you can. They want those minds that are eager to learn about AI. So I'm very interested in it, and I do feel like it can make such a huge positive impact in the wedding space, just because it is so emotional. And we see these brides. We could see them using Bria to just chat, like, oh my gosh, I'm not sure if I made the right decision, and then we can root them back to, why did you say yes? Let's go back. Let's tell this story. And it guides them all the way through, not from just the search and discovery to the purchase, to the post-purchase, to after the wedding. Right. So all of that is such like incredible, I don't know, storytelling value for the boutiques and the designers and the brides. And it's really cool.
Well, and it probably also helps inspire new ideas, things that maybe a bride and, a wedding at large hadn't considered or thought of, you kind of know what you know. And, if you've seen it in other weddings, and that's kind of just what right? But like, if you can get that kind of that creativity that's so fun out of the generative AIs, to help imagine some of that, I would have to think that's a pretty interesting business case. And the companies you're working with, whether the designers or the shops, of, hey, you can open up all sorts of new opportunities, sales points, for people that maybe hadn't considered it because they came in with one idea and one notion just based on, what their, families has had in the past, or what they see with relatives and friends locally.
Exactly. And I wanted to tie into something that I had mentioned when I spoke through the interview for Ohio X a couple months ago. And, buying a wedding dress is an experience. And we want to make sure that experience is preserved, but it also empowers the businesses around that bridal shop. So we can use this to branch off into, we have a bridal boutique here in Columbus, and then we can gather that information. Well, what do you want to do during that day? Do you want to go out to dinner? Do you want to go shopping at local boutiques? Do you want to see, a play, or, explore some of the arts, and then create a whole weekend or a whole day, that surfaces around that, that appointment and makes that memorable. But it also drives commerce to those smaller businesses
Absolutely.
around it,
Yeah.
because I live in a small town, right? I live 2 hours away from Columbus, and it's really important to support these small local businesses. And like I said, I was one. So it comes from my heart that I know how hard that these small business owners work just to stay afloat in today's, economy.
Yeah. Well, and that's cool you mentioned that, because I was thinking of like how most weddings now seem to have their own website, and that's made possible because of low code or no code solutions, whether it's
Yep.
what is it, like Tie the Knot or something, or like,
The knot.
yeah, the
Yep.
Knot, or
Hmm.
like Squarespaces. But how many times have you gone to those and it's like, I always love looking at them. It's like the story, and then who's in the wedding party, but then you also got to check out the really important like travel page and the lodging
Yeah.
page and then what to
Yep.
do page. And it's like, okay, well, you get two hotel options, one airport option, and then like, you know, three restaurants and two things to do at night. But like, if you're new to a town and you're experiencing it all, and I know we're getting away from the wedding, but it's, it's part of your industry, and you
Yeah.
can inspire and imagine like, what does a weekend look like in Cincinnati or Columbus or
Exactly.
Cleveland if you're not from there? And then, referring people to local coffee shops or ice cream shops and restaurants and bars and all that kind of stuff. That's pretty cool. And that makes it
Yeah.
exciting and fun.
It has a lot of legs. I say
Yeah.
that. This
Yeah.
wedding industry, it's tied
Yeah.
to, a life moment, and
Yeah.
you're bringing all these people in. But isn't Airbnb, aren't they starting like this
Yeah.
experiences?
Yeah.
I think I
Yep.
started to read about that. So I was
Yep.
like, I already thought of that.
Yeah, yeah, right, right, yeah. But you have that
Yeah.
natural, I mean, they do too with like where to stay, but like again, you think
Hmm.
about an incredible hook from start to finish of you start with the dress, and you have a whole year plus oftentimes
I know. I know.
of activation. That's so cool. So
Yep.
what does the next, again, you mentioned launching in 2024. I would not have guessed that, just from, all the momentum and activity and just all the kind of buzz you've created, which is incredible. What does the next 12 months look like? What's the next 24? Like, how are you kind of thinking about building this thing? And where's it going to lead to, do you think?
Yeah, so we are securing designer partnerships right now. We've been speaking with them, getting them in a beta mode. So we originally started with boutiques, and then we realized, it was really difficult for them to take on another piece of technology, and that feedback loop that we were trying to, prove. We're like, okay, this is a sign, and that comes with building, and being an entrepreneur and seeing the signals, and seeing the data and trusting your instinct. Now, while we still are helping the bridal, boutiques, we're definitely shifting over towards the designers. So
Okay.
we have four designers right now that we are going to be partnering with, that will have their next generation store locator activated, and then that Pinterest style experience embedded in their website. So it'd actually be a subdomain of their website, but everything will start from their website, and then we'll have an entry point there from dressit.ai. So that'll be where we start with bridal. We definitely want to win that bridal space, but we've had a
Mhm.
lot of conversations with our designers and bridal boutiques who also carry prom.
Hmm.
So we can easily segue into the prom
Yeah.
space, really easy. But it's really the bigger picture is any retailer that has like a wholesale model. You can think of maybe car dealerships, or even like furniture. Like if you're looking at a catalog online and then look at anyone that has like an authorized retailer, we can help them. But I don't want to get too far ahead of myself,
Yeah.
because I really just want to focus on weddings. But
Sure.
when you're an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
you're talking
Well,
to investors, they want to know about scalability.
well, yeah, and then you mentioned prom, and I was like, oh, that's that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
all the sense in the world. And then you're
right.
catching them, maybe 4 or
When
so
they're
years before
earlier.
they need it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Yep.
12, I would say 12 months from now, hopefully we will be well on our way with a pretty solid platform with, 50 to 100 designers,
Sure.
and then their stores, and then
Okay.
we go from there.
That's awesome. Well, as we're starting to kind of wrap down our show today, Becca, we love to ask our guests and friends on here a few kind of quick questions. The answers can or can't be, it doesn't really matter, quick.
Okay.
But it's just fun to get, perspectives of a startup CEO to a researcher to, a Fortune 500 tech exec. So first one is, what is a problem you're currently working to solve? So in your case, not the dress at thesis, but something more kind of specific that, you're kind of thinking about more recently. Could be something within the business, a strategy, a tactic, a pivot, this or that. But what's a current challenge that you're working to solve?
Since we are moving into the AI space, it's the tokenization,
Hmm.
obviously. Like if we're going to offer these chat agents inside of the designer websites, but not charge the brides, it's
Hmm.
figuring out a way to not go overboard with that and not know we don't know how much they're going to be used.
Yeah.
So figuring out a plan to be able to offset that. That's a challenge that we're
Okay.
currently working on right
Love
now.
that. Love that. Second one, what's a favorite read, listen, or watch? So it could be a book, a podcast, or a show. It can be something business related, that you have, it's your North Star, or it can be something that you use to, at the end of a week, kind of unwind with.
So I'm gonna have two here because I just got done watching The Handmaid's Tale. And I know like that's kind of like dystopian, but I was so attached to that during COVID and then it just got over. So I love that. It's very well written. It's kind of weird. But then I am reading The AI Driven Leader by Jeff Woods. I just started to dive into that last week and I really, really love it. There's a lot of really great advice in there.
Cool. All right, that's perfect. Third one is that someone coming to visit, could be a prospective, client or partner, or a future employee that you're looking to recruit. Where are you taking them for a good meal locally? Where are you taking them for a coffee? Just something to kind of show off. Good meal, good coffee, good ice cream, good drink,
Yeah.
something like that.
If I'm in Columbus, I'm going to go to the Pearl.
Okay.
And they have the best happy hour starting at 4 o'clock.
They do.
If I'm at home here, I'm going to take them to Silas Creative Kitchen. So that is a restaurant that's attached to Midmark
Okay.
in Versailles, Ohio.
All right. Love it. And for the Pearl, Dublin or Short North?
Short North.
Okay. Okay. The Dublin, if you haven't been in the Dublin one,
I have.
you,
I love that.
I like that one too, because you can look over kind of the bridge and all that. But the Short
I
North one's
do.
good.
I like the one in Dublin at Christmas.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that answer. Yeah. They have a good 4 p.m. I know that one as
Yes,
well.
they do.
They have a very good happy hour. You got to know the time. So final one is, how are you spending a Saturday? So we'll take work off the table. You can't say work, and which I know is probably, not realistic, but how are you
Yeah.
spending the day? A me day.
Yeah. So since we live in the country and it's pretty, slow and easy here, my husband and I, we love to come to Columbus.
Mhm.
We have two of our boys live in Columbus and we love to meet there. Our youngest son is just going to be a senior in high school. So he's kind of doing his own thing. But yeah, we like to take a day trip to Columbus and just hang out, maybe go to Getaway or hang out with some family and do whatever. But that's a fun Saturday for me.
Okay, and probably going to the Pearl. So
And the Pearl.
it's a good Saturday. Well, Becca, thank you so much. How can people connect, follow along? What does that look like? Website, LinkedIn, whatever you want to promote.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Becca Wenning, easy to find with a little pink background, and then dressit.ai. That's our main landing website. And we have TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest a little bit, but I would say mainly LinkedIn, Becca Wenning, and then also dressit.ai.
Awesome. Well, I'll put those two in the show notes. So for those listening, watching, scroll down, give Becca a follow on LinkedIn, check out their website, and another good built in Ohio startup story. So Becca, thank you so much. Thanks for joining. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. Another great conversation. Really loved it, Becca. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.